All right, Mikey, who's on the show today, man?
Well, we got some good guests on today. We've got Lawrence Searcy. He's actually, this is pretty cool. He's General Counsel and Operations Manager over at Walker Automotive. We got Matt Lasco, VP of Lasco Auto Group in Fenton, Michigan. Great guy, we've had him on before, no stranger to the show. We've also got J.R. Toothman, owner at Toothman Ford in Grafton, Virginia. And part of what we're talking about today is gonna be, what are some things that we need to stop doing maybe as dealers? And you know, there's a lot of stuff going on right now that's been revealed, and there's a lot of stuff that has been pulled out of this circumstance that we're kind of looking at and we're thinking, wow, we got to do something new, or we've got to stop doing something that maybe doesn't make sense anymore. It's going to be good, so you don't want to miss it. Tune in.
It's live, 3:30 Eastern Standard Time here in Tampa, Florida. It's Auto Dealer Live. I'm David Villa, and I'm joined 3 weeks in a row. We can almost make it official, man. Come on.
It's official, baby. Come on, announce it.
Co-host, Mr. Brett Oubre, the dealer. 4 stores. 4?
Four right now. We're working on 5.
You got to love it when, you know, it's like my pastor says, man. He's like, we're 4 campuses, soon to be 5.
That's right.
And when he gets 5, he's going to be soon to be 6.
Hey, we're going to keep going up until the Lord calls us up. How about that?
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I love it. First of all, man, you know, some of the best shows I've been part of, and we've had some really good ones. I mean, over the years, you know, we've evolved as podcasts have evolved and shows that have evolved. But, you know, it's interesting, Brett, because now, and you guys that have been listening for a while, and even newer listeners, I think now, you know, it's just there's so many people on Facebook. There's so much opportunity and so many people, you know, capturing an audience that none of us, right, have time to, you know, to listen to everything that's out there. And so, you know, I think that what I love about what we're doing and the direction we're headed, you know, we're really trying to carve out a niche that we feel, because look, here's the deal, man. You and I are students of leadership. I mean,
Correct.
We're leaders. And I don't think as a leader, I think the definition partially should be, I know your definition is you know, fall after Maxwell's definition, but I think there should be an addition to that, is that we all always will be students of
That's
leadership.
right.
I mean, the bottom line is there's always going to be somebody that just, you know, that's done something or gone somewhere that you want to go. But I think really a fish thinks from the head down. It also, you know, I think excels from the head down in organization. And I think talking to leaders and bringing them in, talking about change, I think it just trickles down, you know, the ladder, so to speak.
Well, I think, you know, we talked about it, I think, last week. But, I mean, if you really, you know, when we started doing this together 3 or 4 weeks ago, one of the things we said is, what does somebody that watches this show that is not necessarily in a position of leadership is, you got to define where you want to go. And if you want to get there, you got to listen and surround yourself with people that are bigger, faster, stronger, and more advanced than where you are. And we've got to do the same thing. I mean, I try to surround my inner circle with people that are better than I am, that are stronger than I am, that are ahead of me. And not in a negative way. Some people take that as, you know, a low self-esteem event, that they're better than me. It's just that they're further along in their journey. And if they're stewards, they're going to share that information with me, and vice versa. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Absolutely. And, you know, if you're listening right now, let's just say, you know, we're going to have some dealers and some GMs on here in a couple minutes, and we're going to, you know, discuss some things that really, you know, it's not like we're discussing, hey, how do you open a dealership?
No.
You know, hey, how do you go that route? I mean, that would be a show that would have a very limited audience. We're discussing things that need to be changed at the top, that possibly many of you are crying out for in this business on the blacktop. But, you know, one of the things you just mentioned made me think of something I've always subscribed to as a student of leadership, that you surround yourself. I mean, we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. I mean, you know, in the Pareto principle that, you know, John Maxwell talks about, you know, basically the 80-20 rule. I mean, we all think by nature, and I thought this way for a long time, that you would look at your weaknesses or where you fall short, and you'd put a lot of energy trying to get better at it. Well, it's actually the opposite, where you put 80% of your efforts into your strengths. And And so I look at it and I have weaknesses. So I think that our circle, that somebody might do something better than us, but it may be an area that we need partnership and collaboration in, because there's only so many hours in a day, and there's only so much that we're going to be really good at.
Well, I think entrepreneurs like you and I think a lot of people in the automotive world are similar to that. Is you tend to think that you can do it all the best, and what you really have to do, like you
Midas
said,
touch.
what you really have to do is you have to look at what are my strengths, and then you bring people around you that make up for your weaknesses, so that together we all go up as one.
Absolutely. That's the biggest fallacy that I learned as a young entrepreneur, is that I did not have the Midas touch. Because you're good at one thing does not make you, in any stretch of the imagination, good at all things. And matter of fact, the contrary. And so, so that's just my experience. But what I love about this, and we've been getting really good feedback, there's dealerships that are watching right now, and you have different levels. From coming up from, salespeople, BDC, ranks, internet managers, finance managers, GSMs, what have you, and dealers listening. And, the change is something that you have people that are moved, and you've experienced this in a positive way, benefiting you. People have moved across state or across country to come work for an organization that's going somewhere that that is forward thinking.
That's right.
So it would be everyone that's watching can't go work for a select small amount of organizations that have it all together. So I think that change, a lot of times, it has to be approved from a top, but it starts from within.
That's exactly right. You have to, one of the things I talk to people that are outside of positions of leadership, and they say, well, what do I need to do to prepare myself for that? And I said, what you needed to do to prepare yourself is think about the challenges that you're having being an individual contributor or an employee or a service person or a salesperson or an office person, and think about those things, because that's what I did whenever I was an employee. And say, when I get to the position of leadership, I'm going to study leadership and I'm going to learn the correct ways to do it. But when I get to the position of leadership, I'm going to make sure that I don't revert and make history repeat itself, because I become a person that wants those perks. As we go up, there's less perks. The conventional wisdom is that the higher we go up, the more opportunities we get to have perks. And the reality is, the higher you go up, the more responsibility you have and the less perks you have.
That's strong. Yeah. Well, you heard that right there. And, we've got a great panel today of some really strong dealers, and ranging from, again, I love, we had someone a few weeks ago from Seattle, and, we had someone from Jersey, and then all over the country. And today is no different. We have, someone representing the state of Louisiana, the state of Michigan, and the state of West Virginia. And you're going to get a chance to really, I think, get into the minds of some of the greatest dealers, and some of the greatest dealers, it's kind of like that, they're not out there shouting it from the rooftop.
That's right.
But I tell you what, they shout it from the top of the numbers and the production that they have come out of their stores. And, and if you walk into those stores, by watching their employees and their people, that they're doing something special there.
Well, I know from your company, which calls on car dealers, and before I was a dealer, I was in the vendor world, as you know, and I got the opportunity to go into a lot of stores across North America.
Right.
And I can tell you that the car business has some of the best entrepreneur leaders probably in the country. And the car business gets a bad reputation for being unethical, and I think it's really the opposite, because you can't be in business long term and be unethical. And they've got some real fine leaders, and I know Matt. Matt's a fine leader in his own right, and JR, I've been on a couple of shows with him, and he's got a lot of good comments. And then Lawrence and I sit on the Louisiana Automobile Dealers Association board together. I've gotten an opportunity to have some one-off conversations, and he's, in addition to a dealer, he's an attorney as well. So he's going to offer us some unique insight into what we can, when we get into what we need to stop doing kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and we're trying to, if you guys have been watching the last few weeks, the whole country, obviously we're in this thing together, right? I guess that slogan got beat senseless. But,
I saw that on a flashing thing this morning when I was walking down on Bayshore.
Oh, it's everywhere. I want to throw up a little bit. It's like pull over and let me off. But here's the thing: we've seen it, and I get it, and but it is worn out. But the reality is, we are right, and we have been. So I think that one of these things, as we pull forward and push forward and lead forward, we want to see the reason we're asking some of the questions we're asking is because these are movers and shakers. These are problem solvers. These are not stick your head in the sand kind of individuals. These are folks that that rolled their sleeves up, got creative, and made shifts and changes.
That's right.
And in many ways excelled not after but during. And now what they're doing is saying, okay, well, I didn't just make it through, but I'm already shifting into the new, into this new dimension, so to speak. And so I'm anxious to talk to them. And like you said, they're really good folks. And
but to your point is they plowed their way through it. They didn't wait for somebody to give them guidance. CDC gave us all guidance on disease. Mm-hmm. We get that. That's not what I'm talking about. But when they saw the winds of change come, they changed based on their wisdom, their intelligence, pulling from their circle of influence, gathering other information from other places, and they pioneered their way through it. Rather than waiting on some government authority to tell them this is how you need to operate going forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to go to a quick commercial break in a minute. But before we do, I want to shout out something that Brian and Glenn Posh, they're having a digital marketing strategy conference. And I'm going to be opening up. They asked me to open up the conference. It's virtual, and it's July 13th. And
sweet.
Yeah, and here's what's really cool about it. They asked me to open up at 8 a.m. with a message of faith and a prayer. Man. So I'm gonna be doing the opening 30 minutes there. I don't speak that long, man. 30 minutes is a long time for me, but they asked me to actually speak in a message of inspiration. So I'm pretty excited about that. So
congrats, man.
Thank you. But if you guys want to check it out, you can go. We'll post the link, Matthias, in. But it's a digital marketing strategy conference, and really cool folks. And I'm looking forward to the contribution that I can make on July 13th, coming up in a week or so.
Do we want to give a plug for what we're doing on Wednesday of next week and where they're going to be able to get that content?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be able to provide the content after.
Correct.
And this was your brainchild. This is really cool. This is nothing to do necessarily with the automotive, even though there's some folks involved. But Brett, who has a good friend that's well known, John Maxwell.
Right.
And John C. Maxwell. He's only written, I think, 180. I think it was 180 million books I just saw last week.
No, I think he's got it's over 100 now.
Sold 100.
It's over 100. I think he sold 31 million copies as of February of a year ago. So it's probably 35 now.
Wow. Yeah. Strong, man. So he's going to be involved in a leadership roundtable that we're doing next week and here. And we have 12 people that are leading businesses and organizations from around the nation coming in. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be filming, and there's no agenda with the exception of just providing a blueprint.
Well, the general consensus of it, we're calling it the table basically, and we're going to bring leaders from all different aspects of every industry, and we're going to ask them a series of questions of what they did during the crisis to pivot their business model, what they did, what lessons they learned from failure, what lessons they learned from success. What did they do to set their business up for next time? COVID's a crisis, but there's many crises. If we look throughout history, there's several things that leaders have to look for. And then John's going to come in and he's going to teach us based on the content that we provide him ahead of time. And then he's going to talk about what John Maxwell companies did in their pivot. And then the goal is to take that. We're going to record the entire event, and then we're going to push it out on social media, YouTube, any platform, free of charge, to any business leader, any business contributor in the country, and you're welcome to take those leadership lessons. We're going to walk away, because there'll be 10 of us. Hopefully we're going to walk away with 9 other lessons, but we're going to give that as our gift to the American business community, and if they can use it, great. If not, then. And
as far as you dealers go, we'll provide a link probably as early as next week, but definitely within the next 2 weeks we'll have the ability for you to download that as well to the dealers that are part of what we do. So. Are we going to break, Mike, or bring them on?
We'll go to break really quick.
All right, we're going to go a quick break. We do have all the dealers on. I see all of them on the screen, but we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. We have Matt Lasco, we have Lawrence Searcy, and J.R. Toothman. You don't want to miss this show. We'll be right back. Thank you for watching Auto Dealer Live.
Thank you.
Hey guys, David Villa here, the CEO of IPD Agency in Tampa, Florida. Listen, I want to tell you about an unprecedented program that we're running with over 150, right in the middle of all the coronavirus mess. We've put on 150 dealers in the last 4 weeks with results that are literally something I have never seen in 20 plus years, in any time. And here's the thing. The pent-up demand for buyers is real. It's out there now. Customers want to buy. And the OEMs, your manufacturer, has results and incentives unlike anything that you or I've ever seen. And I've been doing this for 25 years. So the 0% financing, the deferred payments, the restrictions of credit that have been eased by lenders, these are unprecedented. And if you can really think about this, no customer, virtually no customer, knows about these incentives. Why? Because the OEM has not pushed these incentives. So pent-up demand and incentives like never before equal a phenomenal campaign. And we've been doing something on Facebook. By the way, Facebook usage is up over 70% during these last couple of months. And we've, again, put on 150 dealers. I'm going to show you really quick one of these campaigns. And we've seen dealers move 30 to 55. I'm telling you, real numbers, real dealers, 30 to 55 vehicles in 8 days. And we can do it for you and may be able to start within the next couple of days. Let me show you really quick. This is Toothman Ford there in West Virginia. Now listen, also what you're gonna notice over here, if you're gonna see these little boxes pop up while the video's going, these are actually people that are responding in our Facebook feed now live with campaigns all over the nation. We've got more than 150 going on right now. But this is Toothman Ford's event page. It's his third event. Let's go down to his first one right here. This is his first one, started April 2nd, this past month, 1 month ago. And it's basically nothing but a post that we put together. We buy Oracle data. We find proclivity model individuals that are interested in buying in your market. We upload that data to Facebook. We spend a lot of money. We have an in-house BDC and internet department that sets the appointments. But here's the deal. The message we're using is nothing more than the incentives that the OEM has out there now. So these are not like push it, pull it, drag it in. These are real incentives using the incentives that your manufacturer has put out there. So these are real deals that you can get done, whether it's credit restrictions being eased or whether it's deferred payments or whether it's 0% financing, right? Also, if you want a used car message, a strong used car message right now, the auto auctions are closed. And so we're going direct to the public with pre-owned vehicle prices otherwise reserved for the auction. So this is an example of one of the events that we're doing for Toothman, and it's just a plain message. That's me. It comes with a video we're actually putting in, and they have 1,100 comments, 1,100 comments that have come in off of this campaign. Let me just show you here. Hopefully we can kind of zoom in on some of these comments. But look, so our Super Duty is included in the 0%. So let's see. In 84 months, 0% financing, is it only for people with good credit? I'm interested. Interested? What is the voucher for? Interested. Looking for a van, do you have any? Is 0% on Super Duty or Raptors? Interested, interested. These are individuals. Look, 1,100 of them. Our BDC comments back and replies back to them privately under the dealership name. So we set up a Toothman Ford once in a lifetime event, and our dealership replies back to each and every lead, answering them privately. This dealership, Toothman, sold 54 cars. You can call J.R. Toothman, the owner himself, 54 cars in 7 days, signed up for a second campaign, did the same thing, if not better, and then now has a third campaign that starts next week. We put on, again, 150 dealerships. It's something that's working right now. And listen, not only has it worked in March, at the end of March, and in April, right in the middle of all the closures and clampdowns, but as things begin to open up, it's even going to be more potent. So listen, call us today. The number has been on the screen the entire time. One of my team will walk you through a demo. It won't take 20, 30 minutes tops to walk through. And if you like it, we can put an exclusivity on in your market if it's open, and we can actually start this program within 2 days, possibly, and help you immediately kick off this month. We're filling up quick. Once we get to a certain point, we kick it to the next week. When we're booked, we're booked. So give us a call. The number's on the screen. I want to talk to you guys about this. I promise you this, it's unprecedented, the results we're seeing. And if you're looking for a shot in the arm, this is it.
All right, we're back, and you're watching Auto Dealer Live. Hey, listen, if you just tuned in, you tuned into a great show, and you're going to be happy you did in a couple of minutes, because we have an all-star panel on today that we're going to bring in some really strong questions. I'm going to go to Brett for the first question, but let's introduce them. We have the General Counsel, Operations Manager, Alexandria, Louisiana, Lawrence Searcy. We have the Vice President, General Manager of the Lasco Auto Group out of Fenton and Grand Blanc and Waterford. Now, I got to keep naming cities with Matt that keeps buying stores, Mr. Matt Lasco. And then we have the owner and operator of Toothman Ford and partner in T&S Ford out of Grafton, and I'm not sure in the other city, but Grafton, West Virginia, J.R. Toothman. Hey, gentlemen, thanks for joining us, and we're looking forward to digging into really into your brains a little bit and your genius. But Brett, man, good panel.
Well, thank you. And we're going to start with these questions. Just to give the panelists background is, last week we kind of changed up the format and we're going to do the same thing with you guys. At the end of the show, we asked each panel member, for content of what they would like to see on future shows. And so this question or this set of stuff that came out today came from that group. And so the first question, and we'll start with Matt, is when you think of the question, what do we need to stop doing? What's the first thing that pops into your mind?
Stop chasing the point or the unit or the number. We really learned through this whole program that, chasing a new car sale rather than a new car profit, chasing a parts dollar sale rather than a parts profit. The second things got tough, you notice how much that it costs. And then when you get small, you remind yourself of how profitable you can be by selling things for what they're worth. And we got back to old style business and have had some great success with it.
Where do you think that came from, Matt? I mean, what is that where do you think that chasing the number, chasing the part?
I think it's a human nature. So most of us in the car business, especially the good ones, are good because we're competitive. So you see the guy down the street, you know who that operator is, or you see this dealer in a city that's smaller than you, and man, we should outdo those numbers. And sometimes you literally get so excited to sell the what's it, whether it's a car or a part, you forget that the real goal is you're supposed to sell this stuff to make a profit and produce a business.
Matt, that's actually,
100%.
That answer. I just want to stay on that for a second and maybe go right back to you again on it, because that's a really good answer. And I'm going to tell you, that's not just the car business, but let's look at that in sales in general. What this whole deal made everyone do is just, as a business owner, is look at your money, look at your profit,
Correct.
look at, it made you look at your business. And, you hit it on the head. We're competitive, and we think, and there's a lot of correctness to maybe thinking this way at first. You think if I do more, I make more. But, that's not necessarily always the case, because you find yourself trying to hit a number, because of ego, or because I was supposed to do this, or this is what our goal is. In reality, that doesn't necessarily mean the profit's there. And what a good answer, man. And I mean, do you think that this it caused a lot of dealers like yourself maybe to look at it and kind of analyze that? Is that where the solution came from?
Yeah, and I think the same thing goes is you like spend yourself towards chasing that number. And so when this hits, no one's trying to spend anything.
Right.
And so then it reminds you, like, stop spending this. And then when you see yourself not spending it but still producing, you realize, I don't have to do this. I can do what we're supposed to do better. Closing ratios, selling benefits, building values. We forget how valuable those are. We get lost in spending our way to it. Then hopefully we've all, and I know a lot of these guys are going to do the same thing. Hopefully you rebuild a habit to where we don't just go buy business. We do good business, therefore sell more on a ratio. And that's the real mission there.
Well, I think too, to build on what you said in there, Matt, I think that as the dealer body, you got to get back to looking at your capital and your cash. It's something that I need a return on investment. And and not that you don't want to stop selling cars, but if I sell 400 cars and my return on investment is X, and I sell 300 cars and my return on investment's Y, a lot of times the congruent of that is better, right? So the 300 may be better for you as far as return on capital,
Safer,
return on asset investments.
I agree 100%.
JR, why don't you weigh in on that question? When you think of the question, what do we need to stop doing? What's the first thing that pops into your mind?
I can't really say how impressed I was with what Matt had to say, because I think we've all found that during this time period, like during normal times, I would probably try to stock about 150, 160 used cars. It's been hard to, obtain those recently. But last month, we never had more than 108 used vehicles in stock, but sold 170. So that's
Right.
pretty damn good efficiency, as far as returns and that type of thing. So you find out that you can become more efficient when you really need to tighten your belt up, with certain things like that. The one thing I think that we all, and this goes along, we have to stop doing, is holding on to things of, recently when I purchased a dealership last year, I kept hearing, well, that's not the way we've done it. That's not the way we do it. That's not the blah, blah, blah. Well, we're coming in here for a reason. This dealership wasn't purchased because you guys were being so successful and making so much money.
Right.
So I think that we have to be flexible and adaptable to always learning new things. You know, just like during this type of thing, working with Dave, it's opened my eyes that I had never really, we used Facebook a lot of times as a passive format just to, you know, put customers' pictures up, that type of thing. Well, after working with him and his team, I've realized that this is a very interactive market that can actually produce real, tangible, measurable results. So I think that we've got to stop holding on to the old saying, well, that's the way we've always done it. That's the way we're going to continue to do it. It works, that type of thing, because there's no game plan right now that's going to get us until the end of this race. You know, it's going to keep changing, and we got to be able to adapt accordingly as we go forward.
I got a question, a follow up to that, JR, and thank you, by the way, for the you know, for the plug on the advertising. But I want to go back to something you said in the beginning of that, and I don't think you meant it this way, and maybe you did, but you kind of moved off of it real quick. But I thought about this last week with another dealer that I was talking to about inventory. So, and maybe even, you know, other Lawrence or Matt might want to jump in and at the second part of this and comment. You know, because a lot of times the narrative, Brett, you know, whether it's marketing or inventory, is pushed by vendors, is pushed by, you know, somebody that's telling you that this is a problem and I got a solution, whether it's subtle over a course of time or not. And so my question, I guess, you know, you did what you thought you couldn't do with less than you had as far as inventory. So my question to you is also something that we thought we couldn't do or thought we needed was, obviously we need product, but do we buy in sometimes to the quote trends that somebody says we need to sell? You know what I'm saying? In other words, or is it possible that a customer that wants a vehicle will come onto our lot and then we can put them in a car because that's what they want? You know, in other words, you know, sometimes I've heard dealers say, man, I don't have any inventory, or I don't have the right inventory, or I'm not getting these vehicles. Were we so dependent on certain vehicles? And, you know, if you know where I'm going, and maybe you can comment a little bit.
I think kind of like Matt said, we all, by human nature, we're going to chase a number to a degree, you know, but then I think sometimes if we look back in the mirror, we've chased that number in error sometimes to the detriment of profit, or buying stuff just to say that we sold a car, that type of thing, which really doesn't make a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. So I think, that we can find ourselves being more efficient, stocking more of the right stuff, you know, doing it the right way, and be actually more profitable and more efficient as far as our turns and our investment and that type of thing. And I think if coming out of this, if we all haven't learned some of these lessons, then we're pretty glib, because definitely during this time period, and this time period's not over. I mean, it's still going to extend, for, much longer. I don't think any of us have a crystal ball on that, but I think we should definitely come out of this with different processes to make ourselves leaner and improve.
Well, it's definitely not going back to normal. I mean, it's, you know, everybody keeps saying, I can't wait till it goes back to normal. But I mean, we rocked people's, you know, I mean, if I come in every night and I put my keys, my wallet, my cell phone, my change in my pocket, and somebody moves it, the next morning they say, well, I thought you had a good memory. No, I just put it in the same place every day, right? And so that's kind of what's happened is that we had our way that we did stuff on a daily basis, and that's been changed. Yeah. And so it's not going back. What we got to do is continue to improve on that. Mm-hmm. Lawrence, you want to weigh in on that question? When you think of the question, what do we need to stop doing? What's the first thing that pops into your mind?
Yeah, you know, I'd agree with both Matt and JR. You know, the problem, I don't know that it's so much that we drive ourselves, but the manufacturers are the ones that are driving it for us. They dangle all these carrots out in front of us that, you know, if you hit your SFE number, whatever Ford's number is or whatever Hyundai's number is, you know, that we're going to give you all this money. And you realize really quickly when you look at it, you lose money every month when you chase their program. So, you know, when I looked at this question, very similar to what they were saying, except for, you know, we've been around, we celebrated our 100-year anniversary last year.
Congrats.
And so we've got
it's very cool.
You don't look 100, buddy.
Right, I know. Yeah, I look pretty good. But we've got a lot of legacy white elephants that exist in our business that, whether they're people or processes, that we've had to shake up recently. And you know, we all want to use the excuse that, Well, I can't find a guy to do that. I don't have, I don't have a market for service advisors, or salespeople are so hard to come by. So I'm gonna keep that guy. Or he's been my manager for 16 years. So what am I going to do? I've got to have that guy. Well, you realize really quickly that if they're not going to get on board with your culture or with the change that you want to make, or listen to what you're going to say as the leader, that person doesn't need to be either in that job anymore or in your organization anymore. And that's a real hard conversation to have with somebody that you know, and you've known for a really long time.
And you guys, if you don't know, I mean, they're just like Matt, they're very community involved. So it's probably somebody you know from the community, right, Lawrence? I mean,
well, and we live in a small community. So, I mean, if you go to, when you go out to eat in Alexandria, you go to Chili's, right? I mean, because that's the fancy restaurant, right? So, you're going to run into these people wherever you go out to dinner, or you work out the same gym, or you live in the same neighborhood. I mean, my CFO lives 3 houses down. So, you're going to see these people again, and you want to be a good ambassador in the community, but at the same time, you got to do what's right for your business. And that requires having real accountability in your business and making sure that you as the leader are holding those people accountable, and not with an iron fist, but with a nurturing accountability that says, look, if you can't do it in this job, let's see if we can't find another job that would be better for you. And then if that doesn't work, well, then, I don't have anywhere else for you, but I'll try whatever I can to get you in the right position to be successful. And then, if that doesn't work, we need to move on to somebody else. And that's sort of what we work on.
Let me say something to what Lawrence is saying, because again, the people out there that are listening to what we're talking about, David, that are not dealers, that are not in a position of leadership, listen to what Lawrence is saying, because I've had a lot of people, and you probably had a lot of people that work for you, and they come to you and they go, what can I do to have job security? Mm-hmm. And to have job security, you need to educate yourself and you need to perform, right? And so what Lawrence is saying is they've got a lot of people that work there, and we've all had that. I've had that. You've had that. And you have a lot of people that work there, and you feel a sense of loyalty to them, and you should. Mm-hmm. But their sense of loyalty to the company should be to educate themselves so they can bring the creative ideas to the table. That's how you make yourself always employable, mm-hmm. right? Because even if the business is shrinking, if you got somebody that's educating themselves and performing, they're going to be the last ones out the door. So as the individual contributors are out there and you say, what can I do? Perform. And then stay ahead of the trends.
Absolutely. Let me go back to Matt for a second, because every one of you, we had a question, you talking about the criteria that we use to kind of evaluate, what needs to be discontinued, but all of you, because of your leadership level, answered that. You didn't just say what you stopped doing, you kind of said why, mm-hmm. and how you measured that. So let me go to this question, Matt. You have people that are listening right now, and this is the case with a lot of people that are not in a dealer position. There's people watching right now going, my God, I wish I lived in Michigan. Man, I wish I lived in Louisiana. Man, I wish I lived in West Virginia to work for these kind of people. And so there, so you have, the criteria, or possibly it's slapping the leader in the face, so to speak. So what do you think stops that? I know you can't get inside their head, but if you had to try, what stops the dealers that don't change, or what's holding them back, from making these changes, and maybe they're stuck? What do you think?
It's hard. I mean, I've said this for a long time. Part of the fact that I came from a tiny dealership and started at 18 and worked my way through right alongside my brother, we know no matter what, if we have to make that tough decision or tough cut, or we're going to try to grow something, we can jump in and do it. But at the same time, I did a bunch of changes with all the stores here. I have a real good friend. I looked him in the eye and he says, well, hi, look, June was good. Yeah, we put up numbers. He says, how's your July? So the first 15 days of July are going to be terrible for me. He's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, I've changed this person, hired this person, 2 people are on vacation, and I'm going to have to fill all those chairs for 15 days. Not a lot of dealers want to do that, but they don't realize that that 15 days is going to make the next 365 days better.
Yes.
And I think that's a challenge, but I would challenge them to start to learn that there's many times where if you just trench in a couple times and make a process, or put in the extra effort to make whatever you believe in part of the way you do business, then later on life gets better. And I think that holds a lot of them back, David. And or some of them haven't you know, they work their way into what they have. That's fine, but they hadn't been in every role. So they don't have the comfort to go in and say, I'm going to blow up the finance process and start a new one, because the finance team has kind of always done what they did for 11 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That type of a thing. And there's a balance there where maybe they need to find that general manager that they're so confident in that he can help them make changes. I was in a 20 group of some of the best guys I've ever worked with. And all the time when it came down to it and someone had this massive performance increase, the answer was really, it was the guy. They made a change somewhere, somehow, or they let someone grow, and the guy gal, whatever, that they put in that position changed it all. It was the personnel change or personnel move that had that big spike. And maybe some of those dealers need to look at that angle.
Hey, you know what the intangible is too, Matt, off what you just said? The intangible is the culture hit that you take. When Matt goes get in the finance chair and says, okay, I'm going to run finance for the next week, the people that are in that building with him for that change that he just made are saying, this person is bought into our success. Because when you have an action with an employee, it's really not about the individual action with that employee. It's the people that are in the building that are watching and going, did he treat this person fairly? Did they give this person every opportunity to succeed? Did they communicate clearly what was going on and give them opportunity to correct that? And then fourth that he just added is he's willing to go in and say, okay, when we make this change, I'm going to be the one that goes in and sits in the seat and sees how the situation is, and if there's any process change, the loyalty and the commitment to the culture that you'll get from doing that is something that money can't buy.
Everything you said is on point right there, and that's why I'm willing to. And my brother's the same way. We're willing to jump in and do it because of that type of return, Brett. 100%.
You know, Brett, one of the things that's there is that, you know, rebuilding or building up your culture never takes a day off.
No.
So if you're not reinforcing your culture every day from what you believe the culture should be from the top down, it takes about, 10 days to erode everything in your culture.
That's right.
And it takes one toxic employee that can do it for you. And that guy's got to go every time.
That's good.
Well, Lawrence, since you on, why don't you weigh in on that? Is that what do you think that when we evaluate what we should stop doing, what holds you back, and what do you think holds our dealer body back? Because I mean, we sit on a board together. I know you're in a 20 group. I mean, what are you hearing?
Look, there are habits that you get into, and like you said, with your keys or whatever, trying to get out of a habit is the hardest thing to do. And the only way to do it is to sit down and reinforce it day in and day out, to train on it. We made a commitment 4 or 5 years ago that we were going to be getting training every week, every single person in the dealership at lunch. We'd pay for lunch, and it had fits and starts. So there'd be reasons why they couldn't do it one day, or they took a week off or whatever. And at that point, you just say, no, we're doing it come hell or high water every Tuesday, every Thursday, every employee. And it's changed the way that we do business because everybody's on the same page now.
That's awesome.
Good. Yeah, that's great. And I want to ask you, JR, kind of the same question, but I want to ask, because the auto industry, I've often said this, and of course this whole season for some dealers, I know that many on this panel, had some record months, and many dealers that I've talked to had some really good months. But for a lot of dealerships, it was a sobering time where, their business shrunk, of course, across the board overall it did. So, but before this, I've often said that the amount of money that the automotive business makes, causes us to procrastinate changes because, we're making money. So, a lot of times you don't see the festering that's underneath that possibly will blow up one day with employees. So let me ask you, JR, how much do you think that procrastination, plays, just good old procrastination possibly plays, holding people back from changing in this industry?
Well, I think I probably learned one of the most valuable lessons ever, when at the time you don't digest much. I went to school at the University of Miami, and one of my business professors said at one time, he goes, if you don't terminate somebody who needs to be terminated, you're potentially jeopardizing everybody else who works there's job, whole company. Because if you allow it for one person, you're going to allow it for multiple people, that type of thing. And I think we do. My dad was very guilty of that. Probably one of the best people I've ever been around. If he tells you anything, it's straight up, and that's just the way it is. But did not like to have that tough conversation or that tough decision, that type of thing. And I think when we procrastinate that, if we start to see the tea leaves changing and we don't do anything about it, then we're potentially jeopardizing our entire organization. And that's something I think we all, like Matt maybe alluded to, maybe some of the changes. I think what he was talking about is the 15 days of July. I think we're all going to see the next 60 days, I think is going to separate the men from the boys or the women from the ladies or blah, 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 because I think all the ships were kind of high. There's been an ether in the market with the stimulus money and that type of thing, and people have been selling cars. Now that inventory's been tighter to come by and all that settled down a little bit, I think the next 60 to 90 days are really going to separate, the people that have learned the lessons as far as keeping the expenses tighter and improve their process. And I think that's where we're gonna find out who the winners are.
Well, when you talk about the tough conversations too, I mean, I personally have experienced this is when I have the tough conversations with people, I've had some of the most positive things come out of those conversations pending the person has a decent attitude, because most of the time there's very few people, unless they just have an attitude problem, that don't want to perform, right? And usually when they're not performing, it's about a talent set where I've got them slotted somewhere where they're not going to be successful, whether it's in a sales job or in a service job or in an office job. And if I do the right career counseling, I've got letters in my file from people that they ended up going on to do something else. And, we're all in the retail business. They turn out to be one of our biggest referrals if I handle it correctly,
That's real power. Actually, I want to go off script here for a second with what you just said and ask Matt. Maybe we can go round robin. We have time for, I guess, this question and then maybe a quick round robin on one of these others you have down here, Brett. But Matt, with regards to what Brett just said, there's a lot of shifting, and possibly because we had to, possibly because we lost somebody, or possibly because we whatever. But during this season, there was some change. So putting somebody into a position that ended up being right, or shifting somebody into a position that just fit, and watching all of a sudden magic take place. Have you experienced that? And if you have, or maybe share how powerful that is.
I like to a T, and it's just one of those perfect success stories where the company and the employee are 10 times all better. I had a manager that's been with me almost 10 years that kind of worked his way through the 3 different stores and brands, and had gotten into a GSM role at a Mitsu store, but had always been a Ford guy. And I saw after COVID the struggles to get everything back and get the place rolling. I just didn't see the enthusiasm. And I took him for a Sunday ride out in my UTV to the property and let him shoot some guns. And then we came back to the Ford store and stared at some big lifted Ford trucks, which he used to be my lifted truck guy. And I said, how much do you miss building those trucks? And the guy's eyes lit up like this. And it was like you could see, oh, that's the car guy I hired 10 years ago. And we made some moves and shifted them around. And by luck, because of COVID, there are a million great applications out there. So one, if you're a sales manager listening right now, you better, like Brett said, perform, because I got more applications than I've ever seen in my life for a new car manager role. I end up landing an awesome candidate. He's down at that store happy. And the guy that moved up here June 1st back to the Ford store put up numbers that I never had before. Every sale he did was an added sale, an added gross, an added consumer. So it's there. That took a lot. I mean, man, I had hired a coach to work with him. I had gone 4 months trying to figure it out. Just like you said, JR, that my father, I grew up under him. We never wanted to part ways with anyone. We look at these people like they're our family. So I'm brainstorming, how do I get this talented person I've had that I know should succeed back in a chair where they can go? And then same difference, watching his last 30 days of life, he's lost weight, got fitter, feeling better, or better with his people outside of work, and it's because he's where he belongs. So it's
I wonder how
perfect question and super success story for us.
Just to lighten it up for a second, but I mean, that's an awesome story. I didn't know that, but I knew that a lot of change. But Matt, just on a side note, how nervous would someone get if the owner takes you riding on an ATV with some guns?
That's true.
Hey, let's go for a Sunday drive.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, let's take a little ride here, buddy.
Yeah.
He didn't know where we were
Especially
going.
somebody with a beard like that.
Yeah.
I had him meet me at a little corner store downtown, and I showed up. in the UTV and said, "Come on." So it was humorous, but at the same time, I'm going to talk to a guy about making a career change, and he's got more ammo in his gun than I do. You know?
That's
so
good point.
It was a lot of fun, and like I said, sometimes it takes that as a dealer to get personal with your people and get them in a comfortable environment where he knew he could just be himself and find out what really makes someone happy. A lot of times they'll tell you more about your company when they're outside of the store, and that's what you really need to know is the pulse of your company. What's going on? Is there a toxic employee that no one's told you about, but it's going on, et cetera? We take a lot of pride in that. We really try to stay tight with our people.
It's good, man. Yeah, you know, let me roll that too. I mean, JR and Lawrence, I mean, you know, I don't want to put you guys on the spot, but I mean, do either of you have a situation like that where, you know, similar, where you just maybe found the right position for a person that it just excelled? Did anybody have a recent story of that?
Well, kind of on the opposite side, we've kind of had a person that along the way that was, you know, was a good performer in some ways, but found a lot of toxicity in the, you know, the relationships and the, you know, the kind of prima donna type stuff. And we found that by, you know, it was addition by subtraction, because now the entire, you know, and it sounds strange and it sounds almost awful, but when you're an owner and you feel like you got to walk on eggshells in certain places of your dealership,
I've been there.
Yeah, that's an uncomfortable feeling. And so we that's helped us out a lot. And it's kind of like, you know, Lawrence and Matt both said, you know, and to quote Jimmy Johnson, it's not about X's and O's, it's about Jimmys and Joes. And that's, you know, that's what wins games, or that's what wins, you know, businesses, is the people. And if we give them the opportunity to thrive in that type of thing, I'm kind of a believer in people that they will, you know, if we give them high expectations and that type of thing. I've got a young lady that got pregnant in high school at 16 years old and has raised her daughter, that type of thing. I made her my BDC manager at the age of, I'm not sure that she'd even turned 20 at the point. And I brought her into my office and I said, "Hey, I don't think that anybody's probably ever believed in you, but I said, I do, because I see that hunger in your eyes and what you bring to the table." Now here we are 4 years later, and she's been an integral part of everything that we've done to build the dealership up. That's probably one of my most proud moments in that regard.
Hey, JR, to build on what you just said, though, the key of what you just said, that pull out a little nugget, is she had the passion. And if I looked about 3 years ago, I kept getting people that I saw the passion and I saw the ability, but they didn't see it in themselves and they didn't have the passion or ability. And if I've got 12 hours in a day, I want to work with motivated people, because that goes back to what you were saying with the Pareto principle. If I'm working with motivated people, the results are going to be generated. But if I'm having to push somebody uphill, that never works. And that's when you talk about having to make a change.
Yeah.
So Brett, to your point there, you know, one of the things that you need to do, or anybody needs to do in our position, is find those people that have been working with you that have been previously motivated and figure out why they're no longer motivated. You know, you'll see it with managers that have been working for you for us for decades. I mean, I'm talking 30-year managers that were really built our entire, you know, platform for one of our dealerships, and suddenly the performance just wasn't there, and you realize that something's going on and they just don't have that passion anymore. We moved him into a wholesale role and buying all of our used cars, which is not something we've ever had before. And his eyes have lit up again, and he's found new passion in the business. And you know, it's a matter of finding those people that they still want to perform, but I mean, you just got to figure out what's motivating them, or what's going on at home that's disappointing them, or, you know, I mean, everybody brings baggage with them. You gotta ferret it out from them.
That's good stuff. I think everybody's got to have some kind of growth, whether, you know, some people are not slated to go all the way up, but it's important that they understand what their skill set is, they understand what their goal sets are, and that they control where they get to go. And I think that, building on what Lawrence said, that's exactly what he's talking about. He gave the guy an opportunity that the guy wanted to do, that the opportunity was there. Somebody just had to recognize it and move him into that role.
Yeah, and I love it. You know, you can light a fire in somebody within them, right? It's better than lighting it with under them. And you know, what I got out of what JR said a minute ago is, you know, he saw something in her. She might have doubted it, but there was embers there. There was something there left burning. And so, you know, so JR, you know, ignited something that might have been dry or what have you. But, you know, and like you said, Brett, sometimes, you know, you can't, you know, you can't turn somebody right. Even if you see potential, you know, we talk about this as leaders. The graveyard's full of people, you know, that have potential. And I say this way, talent and potential don't matter unless you can unlock it, you know, and develop it. It just doesn't matter, period. I've fired more people and parted ways, watched them quit, more people with potential or talent. But when you get that somebody that, you know, that has that potential, but also, you know, is it needs help cultivating, then you got some magic there. But the shifting, you know, I've seen it happen with a lot of folks. You shift them into a place because passion is necessary, and but at the same time, it's not enough by itself. But if you can hone that into the right area and there's a need, sometimes you can take a really good person that's just misplaced, snap them in. It's like that game. I have my granddaughter's like 6 months old. And we just bought her the old school blocks, you know, that have the little holes, shapes on top. And, you know, no matter how hard you try, those shapes aren't going in, you know, to a hole.
That's right.
You know, unless they go into the place they belong. And so, but, well, we're out of time. I know you guys have been generous on hanging out with us, and man, what's some great nuggets. I mean,
that was
awesome,
great content.
Awesome stuff.
Before we take off, guys, what do you see that topics that you would like to hear us cover that would be helpful to the automobile dealer body?
I think benchmarking employees is something that we work on daily. And now that I'm fortunate, I have more stores, more people, we've got more things to benchmark against. But I'd love to hear some other dealers' aspect. What do you benchmark a sales rep, or what is a real benchmark for a new or a used car sales manager? Units or gross or departmental responsibilities. It's always nice to know how we're all holding each other's team accountable. And so if you're sometimes I could be a little challenging as an owner. I have kind of a high standard. Maybe that standard is justifiable or not. It's nice for us all to kind of chat a little bit about it and make sure we're being realistic. You know.
How about you, JR?
It's good stuff.
I would say something. I mean, we talk about, but what I find, especially the smaller the dealership that we don't do it, is organized training. That I think Lawrence kind of talked about it, because it seems like it's one of the first things that budget-wise goes down the drain and that type of thing. But yet, probably one of the most important. And just to see how people, and I'm not just talking the FMC dealer training that the techs have to do, that type of thing, but I'm talking about training, daily, whether it be, organized sales meetings, that type of thing, or certain things like that. I just feel like we are very guilty of getting away from that type of thing. Nick Saban says, you don't practice something until you get it right. You practice it until you can't get it wrong. And I think that we are very guilty of that, of getting away from a structured training program all around the dealership.
How about you, Lawrence?
So what I'd like to hear a little bit about is what these dealers are doing to grow right now, where they're seeing opportunities while we're going through COVID-19 and stuff, to seize on market share or to gain market share, whether they're looking at acquiring stores, where they're looking at deploying capital. What's the most important money spend that they have right now, where they're, when they're going to go spend money.
That's pretty strong.
Most of it is advertising, so there's no reason to advertise I don't have any cars.
No.
Lawrence, I don't know. I saw you nod your head yes, though, when he said Nick Saban said. I'm not sure.
No.
I don't know if I didn't think I'd ever see that.
Hey, don't box him in. He's in Alexandria now.
Awesome. Well, guys, man, I look forward to watching this back and taking some notes, but I got a lot of things I want to go back and revisit, man. Great stuff.
Same here. Appreciate all of you guys coming
Thanks
today
very
and
much
your
for
input.
content.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, thank
Awesome.
you guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Strong.
I love it, man. I'll tell you something. Those are some good topics right there, brother.
That's good, man.
Those are some, if you listen, weighing in too, as you watch this throughout the week, and we know that we get a lot of people that watch this and listen to it later on. Also, put in the comments. We'll come back and we'll see them. If you want to see a certain topic covered, if you want to see certain, individuals on. We've been talking to some folks. I haven't told Brett yet, but we had the head of the head of automotive for Google.
That's awesome.
Contact us this week about coming on and to a show, and she runs all the automotive for Google, and so
that'd be great.
Yeah, so we've got some. We want to integrate some of these things into some shows. So if you got some ideas, we want to bring them to you. We want to give you what you want, man. But thank you guys for listening to us, and how awesome is it to have Brett Oubre here, man? So
hey, I appreciate the opportunity. I enjoy Dave. Dave, I've learned a ton of stuff from him, and I mean, I'm just here to be a student and give what lessons we can.
Awesome stuff, man. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
Hey, see you guys next week.
All right.